That is this controversy, and the reason this came about was because of the millions and millions of pounds spent on people like Terry Wogan, and particularly Jonathan Ross, which is still getting our viewers exercised. And then the BBC's commissioned a report from Economist, which turns around and says, well, actually, not really spending too much. Wasn't it bound to say that?
I don't know if it was, and you're right that this was a response to that very substantial public concern about salaries for top performers. It had been going on for a year when I came in as chairman of the trust, and we decided at that time that we should find out what the facts were, and we got Oliver and Oldbaum, a distinguished group of consultants, to take a close look at what the BBC does and to answer questions about whether the BBC was paying more than others, whether there was a danger that it was distorting the market. Now, they come back with a very clear conclusion that the BBC doesn't pay more than others, that indeed there has been a firmer grip on talent costs over recent years, which have kept down the rate of inflation, and in some cases the BBC pays less than others. Is anybody else
in the world of TV and radio getting paid £6 million a year?
Well, without me getting into what is speculation about what individuals are paid, or particularly making any comments on individual contracts, we know both in this country and overseas that there are some very substantial sums being paid for the top performance.
Maybe the BBC then should just opt out of it and say, if you want to go abroad, if you want to earn that money elsewhere in the independent sector, you can. But, you know, we're protecting licence fee payers' money, and that's not a good way of spending it.
Sean, you're absolutely right, and that's exactly the message which the Trust is giving in this release today, while saying that actually that the evidence shows the BBC is getting a firmer grip on talent costs. We're saying, firstly, that it has a duty to licence fee payers to use its power to negotiate the best deals. It certainly needs to do even more to bring on new talent so that it has a choice. And there are some lessons about how it negotiates with agents. So there's no complacency here. There's more to be done. But the situation is not as bad as some had thought it might be.
Because it does get people pretty cross. I mean, Jay Williams from Broadstairs, for instance, is fairly typical, saying, regarding one particular presenter, no person should be paid this amount, especially as he's just being himself. And then there's a remark about how much talent he has or doesn't have. Somebody else saying this person is a disgrace to broadcasting. Both need and somebody else needs a reality check, CHEQUE. I mean, this is their money. This is the viewers' money that's being spent on these enormous salaries, and they don't feel they're getting value for it.
But you know, what is clear as I go around the country, there are plenty of people standing up, naming individuals, saying, we don't think this person should be paid as much. There are other people standing up in public meetings saying, that's the person is the very reason that I choose to watch the BBC. And very often with these very big names, you get a polarisation in the audience. You get a very strong support for them, but you also get strong antipathy. And in some cases, of course, that becomes part of the act, to play off those two different parts of the audience. Yeah. Now, these are complex decisions. This is not a green light to pay whatever the BBC wants to, but it is saying, actually, there are firm processes in place. They do appear to have brought down the increases in top talent costs, but there's more to be done in terms of bringing on new staff and asserting the fact that the BBC doesn't have to follow the market. Why
are the names not revealed in the document? Why don't we know how much sort of the top BBC talent is being paid?
Well,
so people can make a decision about...
Would you really want us to publish your names and what you're paid?
Well, if everybody's was, perhaps people could then make a decision about value for money.
I think it would put the BBC in a very difficult position in seeking to retain staff who could work elsewhere. And there would be a whole series of folks who would say, look, I can expect confidentiality when I work with others. If I can't get it from the BBC, I won't work with you. Now, I'm clear that talent is a very important part of what the BBC offers. We're not going into some sort of a Puritan future in which the most exciting faces and voices are rejected from BBC screens and airways. Our programmes have to be as exciting, as attractive as possible.
What you're saying, in effect, this morning in the report, or the report is saying, is it's not a runaway horse. Things are being looked at. There is a measured process. But at the same time, would you approve of a situation in the future where the BBC signed a 3-year contract with an individual to the tune of £18 million?
Bill, I'm going to duck that question. You're absolutely right. It's not a runaway horse. It's under good and apparently sharper control than it's been historically. We're saying there's even more to be done, and if it's possible to get the cost of even the most expensive talent down, then that's what we need to do to show that we're serving the licence fee payer well.